My name is Mariet Verhoef-Cohen, and I am the moderator for this wonderful webinar this morning, this afternoon, or this evening for some. Women for Water Partnership, in conjunction with its partners NetWwater and Soroptimist International of the Southwest Pacific, has organized a series of 8 case studies webinars in October and November. And this is already webinar case study number 5, Facing Nature's Fury. Women Take Charge in Lombok, Indonesia. These webinars were made possible through a grant of SEI, the Stockholm Environmental Institute, in partnership with the government of Sweden and their Asia's Strategic Collaborative Fund, which aims to foster regional cooperation and policy dialogue for sustainable development and environmental sustainability through capacity building, knowledge sharing, and increased collaboration. This session will be recorded, and you probably already saw in the program slides how the program is working. So we will start with a short video on the case study in Lombok. Ribuk Satu had a regular water supply, as the village had no regular water supply, as the village well had almost dried up following years of drought and aggravated by the earthquake in August 2018. Women's participation was seen as a key from the initial planning stages through to the committee participation and program conception and design. So please enjoy watching this wonderful initiative. Can we have the video, please?
Lombok is an island in eastern Indonesia with stunning beaches and glorious sunsets. In August 2018, a strong earthquake struck Lombok, killing over 500 and affecting 3.5 million people. With SISWP funds, SI Jakarta provided emergency aid, replacing broken water pipes. In January 2019, SIJ decided to support Ribuk Satu village in south-central Lombok, where water was scarce. Their only well had dried up. Women waited hours every day for water. The villagers had poor health and hygiene, relying on rainwater. They used makeshift toilets or relieved themselves in bushes. The village has many with simple houses. The women had ceased their weaving tradition, unable to afford yarn, dyes and looms. Funded by the SI President's Appeal, SIJ designed a 2-year project to help the Ribuk Satu village. Their aims are to provide water through the construction of a new well or bore, wash facilities in the form of toilets and bathrooms, community awareness programs, capacity building and training. SIJ and the President of Soroptimist International of the Southwest Pacific sought the agreement of the Vice Governor of Lombok for the project. The village head and the villagers all shared ideas for this community-driven project. Women have been assigned key roles.
Nanya selain tenun apa? Misalnya gelang. Selain gelang apalagi ya saya tidak tahu. Makanya nanti setiap seminggu 2 kali kan kita pasti ke sini. Nah di situ mulai digali.
The design and location of the wash facilities were agreed upon by all. In March 2019, the project was officially launched. The women helped clear the land and clean the area. The first well was completed within 4 months, but the water flow was inadequate. small bore completed in late 2019 provides enough water for the whole village. Water is channeled into 2 large tanks buried below ground to protect against any further earthquakes. The wash facilities are already being used by the villagers. The SIJ project has also revitalized the local weaving tradition. It also involves knowledge transfer of more complex designs to the other weavers.
Jualan di tempat saja ya Bu ya, di sini saja.
Tawar-menawar terus langsung, tapi jangan dibodohin turis itu nggak bodoh loh.
And beautiful woven cloths are now being produced. These weaving traditions can now also be passed down to the next generation. As almost 80% of the villagers are illiterate, daily literacy classes are held.
Yang besar suaranya. Ayo membaca, ayo.
Organic farming techniques are also being introduced, starting with eggplant, cucumber, beans and corn. Financial management, sewing, baking, health and hygiene and climate change programs are scheduled. The youths meet to discuss goals, education and the negative effects of child brides, unemployment and climate change. SIJ's non-profit partner, the Titian Foundation, will provide a community learning centre for future training. The Rebuk Satu village now looks cleaner and greener and is one of the nicest in the area.
Dengan adanya program bantuan dari Soroptimist, warga dusun kami sekarang sudah sangat terbantu.
And providing income-generating skills for the women. SIJ bringing a brighter future to the next generation of Rebuk Satu village, Lombok, Indonesia.
An impressive and fully understandable project video. Thank you very much. It gave me the feeling of being part of this case study. So Ayla Minato is a graduate from the University of Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, and is a deeply valued Soroptimist International member. For SI Southwest Pacific, Ayla managed 2 of the most successful projects ever implemented by a single Soroptimist club globally. Ayla, I feel really honored to have worked with you, and I'm grateful for your support during the Lombok project and our Women Water Climate webinars. Ayla, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marit. I'll now wait for the presentation to come up on screen. Thank you. So welcome to all of you who are attending this session, and greetings from all of the volunteers of Soroptimist International of Jakarta here in Indonesia. Next slide. The village where we're implementing this project is Rebuk Satu in South Central Lombok Island, which is the island next to Bali, for those of you who know Indonesia. Next slide. So the reason we chose Rebuk Satu was we had heard about the scarcity of water after the quake. They had never had wash facilities. There was open defecation across the area. There were 31 families there. A couple have actually moved away to other islands for employment purposes. 60% were women, and there were high poverty and illiteracy rates, poor hygiene and sanitation, and 1 or 2 issues which really of concern to Soroptimist are the issues of child brides and child labor. Yeah, and so even during the course of this project, we've already had 4 young girls under 15 kidnapped, which is the tradition in this area, and married off early. Next slide, please. So the project commenced in March 2019, and in phase 1, the focus was purely on providing water to the village and also wash facilities. And as you can see here, we've got some toilets and bathrooms, and water is stored in some smaller tanks, and through gravity, it's channeled through to taps. But we also have some underground tanks. And we're proud to say that actually we're providing water now to 3 villages because we have such a good supply. Next slide, please. In the current phase of the project, it's capacity building. And because this region is fairly, or this particular village is not very literate, we're conducting quite a few community awareness programs. As you can see here, hygiene and sanitation, waste management. They had never had any strategies for disposing of household waste or village waste, but now they've come together and they're paying for the garbage to be taken away. We're also having discussions on climate change and how to prepare better for future disasters. And those of you who know Indonesia know that the eastern part has a lot of natural disasters, unfortunately. And basic literacy programs are also being conducted. Next slide, please. So in the capacity building programs, the weaving tradition is one of the most important. The women had a tradition of weaving, but due to poverty, they couldn't afford the yarn or the equipment, yeah? But we've revived that. And our project manager, Lily Kasu, a very well-known Indonesian businesswoman, is now providing some training in basic financial management, microfinancing, and small business developing, and that's working very well. We've got other income generating activities like baking and sewing, although due to COVID, they're on hold for the moment. And we've also introduced organic farming and of course the basic literacy skills I mentioned. Next slide, please. So the objectives are to improve the conditions of women and the village through leadership and equal opportunities. Now women are able, through some upskilling, to do some work and earn income to improve their families' lives and also the village. And this is done through training and income generating activities, all we hope leading to women's empowerment and community development. Next slide, please. So the strategies that we've adopted. From day one, we involved the community and there was grassroots up participation. We had meetings up until today. We have a lot of village meetings, yeah? We involved males, females, widows, young, old, yeah? Everyone had their say. And we also identified local project champions because we realized that a lot of the villagers, if they had questions, they were more likely to go to someone in their own group, yeah, to ask, yeah, and that's worked extremely well. From the outset, we also got the villagers to sign written agreements. So later on, they couldn't come back and say, oh, we didn't really know about the project, yeah? We have their agreement in writing. Our priority has always been water and wash facilities and training and capacity building, but we've also introduced 3 very valuable village work committees, and we've allocated roles there to both males and females. Next slide, Susie. So in the implementation, the water is pumped by an electric pump into tanks above ground. You saw the orange tanks, and the large 5,500 litre tanks are buried underground in case there are any more earthquakes, and we don't want them to cause damage or injury to anyone. The work committees have not only been established, but we're also mentoring those who have roles, yeah? And the water committee, for example, it's teaching the villagers to conserve water, not to waste it, not to let taps drip, yeah? And also now that they've got water, we're hoping that they will really focus on their health and sanitation, have a bath every day, wash their clothes every day, yeah? And we've also appointed women, of course, to the Weaving Revival program, yeah? 25 very keen women on that program. Next, Susie. Our partnerships, our main partner is the Titian Foundation, which is an Indonesian non-profit organization. And we've also worked with the SI President's Appeal from Soroptimist in the Women, Water and Leadership program that was led by Marit Cohen, who is our moderator today and a great supporter of this project. Thank you, Marit. But we've also worked with our local and provincial government officials, and we're very pleased that we had the support of the Deputy Governor of Lombok, who happens to be a woman. Next slide. some very positive outcomes. We're now providing water and wash facilities to well over 100 villages. Yeah, the women are putting their hands up and saying, I want to be trained. I want to learn something new. I can't read and write, but I'm willing to undergo whatever training you can offer us. We have 22 women now in leadership roles through our work committees and through other activities. Next slide. And we're engaging the youth in discussion of what they want for their village, and also how they think they can play a role in the village. And don't forget, schools in Indonesia have been out for the last 6 months due to COVID. So we need to keep the youth busy, yeah, rather than just sitting doing nothing. We've commenced organic farming principles, slow to take on, but we have started it. And our Village Community Learning Centre is being built by our partner, Titian. Next slide. Now, in August this year, we had a midterm project survey, and we're pleased that 100% satisfaction on the part of the villagers. And 15 women are now learning about microfinancing, and some of them have applied for small business grants through the local government. And we're waiting with bated breath to see whether any have received such funding, which will allow them to set up small businesses where they can sell their beautiful woven cloths. Yeah, and 5 recently actually opened a joint bank account. Why a joint bank account? Because most of the women are illiterate and they cannot manage a personal account. But they have appointed Ibu Amina, who's the only major literate one, and our field officer to help. There is reduced open defecation, which is good because the Indonesian government is trying to reduce this nationwide. Better hygiene, sanitation, and waste disposal practices. And the youth are understanding more the importance of education and planning for their future rather than just going off and getting married and so on. We're discussing more openly about climate change impacts and the need for food security. Yeah. Next slide. The revival of the weaving tradition is very important. These cloths you see in the center of photo are actually some that they've produced. In the past, they would have produced cloths with just linear motifs. Now they're using more complex, colorful motifs, and their cloths, which used to sell for about $10, are now selling for between $150 and $200 each. Next. This is Ibu Amina, the most educated of the women and one of our master weavers. And she has said, as you saw in the video, that this Soroptimist project has really helped them. They've got sufficient water now, so the women don't have to wait for hours by the well to collect water. They can bathe, they can go to the toilet in privacy, they can become more skilled and so on. So it's given them a lot of hope to face the future and also for their children. Next. This project is aligned more to SDGs 4, 5, and 6. However, it also involves 1, no poverty, 2, 0 hunger, and 3, good health and well-being. Next. Major challenges, we cannot deny we've had quite a few. The first one that we were confronted with was the first well didn't yield enough water. So we had to construct a second well, and this delayed the project for about 3 months. Yeah. The other ongoing challenge that we have is age-old traditions. Yeah, villages are sometimes slow to adopt new ideas. I mentioned health and cleanliness, saving water, moving to organic farming, yeah, planting vegetables, not just relying on rice farming, yeah, and preventing underage marriages, which is a sensitive issue that we hope to focus on more over time. And we've always had a lack of good quality resources. Some of our building materials had to be brought in from Java, the other major island. The poor quality workmanship meant that there had to be some remedial work for the wash facilities. And we have tried to identify local instructors so they can build a rapport more on the level of the villages, yeah? And of course, COVID-19 has set the project back 5 months, but I'm pleased to say it mostly has affected or delayed some of the capacity building programs like baking and sewing and so on. Next. We've also had to break down some patriarchal attitudes. On day one of our meeting with the villagers, we were told that women were regarded as being very helpful for fetching water, cooking, and serving their husbands in bed. Well, we know they don't have to fetch water anymore. We know they still do cooking. I'm not sure about serving their husbands in bed, but we certainly know there has been a change in attitude towards women in this village. And there are those traditional beliefs too. Water is from God. He will always provide. But Lily Custom, our manager, has reminded them that God doesn't always do home deliveries, right? So you've got to conserve water. And then in our survey, many of those respondents said, oh, but we can always rely on Soroptimist to give us water. Many said poverty is our fate. We're trying to get across the message that with upskilling and changing attitudes, poverty is not necessarily your fate. Next slide. So we've learned a lot of lessons on this project. Community-driven involvement and local knowledge is very important. Identifying local champions to be the liaison between us and the villagers. Empowerment through inclusion and participation at all levels, across the board. And we have to be patient changing the mindset of the villagers. It's not going to happen overnight, and we are making inroads there. And better results are achieved if we use local trainers, not expensive ones from other islands who perhaps cannot train on the level that is going to be beneficial. Next.
You
so
have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. The gender issues that we've supported are equal opportunities through capacity building, making women financially independent, training them so that they have at least basic literacy or more, and awareness of negative impacts of child brides and child exploitation. And some of the women have actually come to us in the last month and said, Soroptimist, can you take our teenage daughters, educate them so that they won't be kidnapped and forced into an early marriage? That is something we have to still think about. But first and foremost, we're putting forth women here to become the defenders of water and promoters of the effects of climate change. And by doing this, we hope that you won't see like in this photo of women and girls having to, trudge for miles each day carrying water. Next. As Ban Ki-moon from the UN once said, all of these issues are all intertwined. We can't look at one strand in isolation, and we certainly agree with that as Soroptimist, and this is what we're trying to do in all of our projects, but in particular in this one. Next. And that's the end of my presentation, and we hope that we are and we will provide a better future for the next generation of this village, and we can use this as a model to replicate it in other villages who are very, very envious of what's happening in this village. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, Ayla. This is very the timing is very, very good. So, and it was a very full and clear and precise explanation of Lombok's ongoing project, because you haven't finished yet. That was very clear. You have been facilitating clean water, wash facilities, agricultural efficiency, food security, access to capacity building, and a range of community training and awareness programs, including those focused on climate change and water conservation. So what would one want more to implement a project? I think this is a model project for a lot of people. And we might hear the answer from Fanny if there are things that can be really sort of improved a little bit, or maybe expanded so that it will be bigger. Fanny Wedahuditama is the regional coordinator for Global Water Partnership, and that specifically for Southeast Asia. And he's an expert in integrated water resource management, WASH, which is water, sanitation and hygiene, multi-stakeholder platform management, and intersectionality analysis and social relationship framework. Fanny is also credited with developing the gender-sensitive indicator development guidelines for a water-related program, Internal GWP SEA. And he was the initiator of the Climate Resilience City program. Funny, it has been really a pleasure working with you. And please take the floor for the next 10 minutes. We're looking forward to your reaction on Isla's presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Marit, and thank you, Ibu Ayla, for the very inspiring presentation. I think this is a good platform to share with everybody that we are doing something very important that not all of us are aware. Actually, we do this development for everyone, but from time to time, we need to be reminded who is everyone. And many times when we design a project, we forgot who is everyone. So then we started to exclude some of the groups, the vulnerable groups, and then at the end of the project, then we just realized that. So I think this project has clearly provided evidence that gender responsive and inclusive community-led project focusing on the basic need, livelihood, and most importantly, the empowerment of the vulnerable groups can significantly help and address multiple challenges faced by the community on the ground. So I think this is a very good example. I congratulate Ibu Ayla and Soroptimist Indonesia of successfully delivering this phase 1 of the project. So this is my first comment, of course. And then my second reflection after hearing Ibu Ayla's presentation is that this project has also considered the lesson learned from the recent earthquake. We know that this earthquake, we have a lot of earthquakes in Indonesia. We live in the ring of fire, geography. So these earthquakes has been very traumatic to many people in Indonesia, especially in Lombok, which just had this recent earthquake. So the project has already considered the lesson learned about the earthquake, what happened during the earthquake, and incorporated in the project design by constructing, this is what I really want to highlight also, the constructing the water tank underground, so to avoid unnecessary loss in the future. So this is, I believe, also the adaptability of the project designer listening to the people on the ground. This is also very important, because then when we listen to the people on the ground, we involve them during the design, then the ownership is very high. So this is the second point that I would like to raise. So again, this is a very good points for the project, and I hope other projects will also follow on this case. And then the third one is that the project also considered from the beginning the sustainability of the project. So the exit strategy has been thought of since the beginning, very beginning. So this is done through the project by applying this user pay principle. So many projects, they usually comes in and then they build something and then they just leave. And then many projects that I know of in Indonesia, especially, then some of the bathroom that they built, the toilet that they built, these were not used at all because people were afraid if something happened, then who will pay for that? So this is also something that of concern. But this project has already applied this user pay principle to be applied in using all these facilities that has been developed together with the community. So this is a sign that the sustainability of the project will be very high, and also it is already ensuring since the beginning the ownership of the community. The next point that I would like to raise, also based on the Ibu Ayla presentation, is the lessons learned throughout the project on the community, especially on the vulnerable groups, empowerment through the literacy education, organization of the management training, and then resurrecting the weaving tradition that is almost not being done anymore as part of the livelihood improvement component. This is something that I respect very much from this project, because then you are not only bringing the facility, you're not trying to help the people with the access to water, but also looking also on the livelihood side. So this is a comprehensive project. I have to admit it's not easy to design something like this, and especially implement this on the ground with the high ownership of the people. And we saw through the video and the slides, the ownership of the people are very high. Everybody is always participating. The woman is there at front. So this is a good reflection, I think, from my side. And in overall, I think this is a very successful project with high sustainability rate. So we wish GWP Southeast Asia had been there, had been involved in this project. So I hope in the future, for phase 2, Ibu Ayla, Soroptimist Indonesia would like to also have this, open this opportunity for us to be engaged. We would like to see how we can also help, because we have also partners in many places in Indonesia that can also contribute to the project. So that would be my reflection, the overall reflection. But I also have some suggestion going forward. So I think not many projects are, since the beginning, understand what kind of gender issues that they will be helping to address. Because since the beginning, even before designing the project, we need to identify what are the gender issues in that location, and then how are we going to help to address this gender issue. So this is something that I always ask myself when we design a project. We need to have how this support of project that we do, like what Ibu Ayla do, is Soroptimist International do, can help to address the gender issues, especially in the Rebuk Village 1. Did you also do like analysis on the gender issues beforehand, so you know what are the gender issues? Because I saw not only women are and girls are the one who is responsible for managing the water, and then they have also lost this opportunity to do other things. But also women are also, there is also a tradition of early marriage. So this kind of thing, is this already identified since the beginning? Because we have an example. I mean, there was this project. I will not mention the name of the project, but this is also a community-based project on delivering water supply and sanitation. But since the beginning, we were already taught about, okay, we are going to provide this water so the girls can have this equal opportunity to go to school. But then, after we delivered the water, and short story, that didn't happen. And then we were thinking why this didn't happen. And then we found out that there was this cultural issues that, like Ibu Ayla said, that women or girls are good for water, taking care of the children, and also serving husband in bed. So this kind of tradition then encourage, force us to rethink our approach, and then try to partnership with different organizations, like a religion-based organization, to help to change the social construction within the village, bit by bit. This is something not easy, of course, but this is something that I would like to understand also from Ibu Ayla. How do you identify this gender issue and integrate it into your project design? And then the second thing is that the replication of this project and the internalization of this kind of approach. So the government, the local government, maybe the village government can understand, can learn about this, and then can try to do it by themselves using their own funding. Because I know the local government, the village government, they have a lot of fun these days. So if they can learn from this, it would be good. So what is the strategy of the program?
You have one more minute.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just have like 3 more points. So my question maybe to Ibu Ayla here is, what is the strategy of the project for ensuring this replication and the internalization by the local government? And then also, I would like to suggest that in the future, I saw that this weaving tradition was being, revitalized. So I think it's also good to inform, to try to train this community about how to manage their business. I heard about the business model canvas. This is something that is useful and easy to understand. Maybe in the future we can use this. And then one more important thing is that with water become available, there usually another problem also coming in, like diarrhea or malaria, dengue fever, and everything. So how this project will address that kind of problem in the future. And then also last thing that I would like to not only to Ibuaila but everybody in the room, would it be possible for every call of proposal, especially if there is donors in this room, to include the requirement of gender issues mapping before the design of the project? So when we design the project, by knowing what is the gender issue in that specific location, then we can integrate to the project design and we can identify what would be the best gender sensitive indicator for the project. So that would be my reflection and my comment for going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very, very clear. And the questions are already coming in. So if you have questions, apart from, of course, the questions that Fanny already had, please put that in the questions and answers. That would be very helpful. Thank you very much. And we have ample time to discuss that later. So I think we first will give the floor to the young water professionals and to hear their point of view for the future. Maybe they already have some sort of solutions. So we start with Shotaro Goto. He's based in Japan and currently working as a consultant for a Japanese consulting company. His expertise is in the area of WASH, which is water sanitation and hygiene, and sewage planning. And then after 5 minutes, we'll get our second young water professional, which is Uli Fitri Handayani. And she is Communication and Project Officer for the Alliance of Water Stewardship in Indonesia since 2019. Uli specializes in promotion, communication, and in project implementation. Uli has 5 years experience in environmental health, water stewardship, sustainability, environment, and working with the industry and government in policy analysis and research. So Shotaro, please start and take the floor and let us see how the future is going to look when the youth is taking over.
Okay. Hello, my name is Shotaro Goto, and thank you very much for good opportunity for me. Currently, I'm working at a Japanese consultant company, and today, regarding youth perspectives, I want to talk about 3 issues mainly. First of all, although experts consider that it is difficult to achieve the indicators of SDGs Goal 6, in my opinion, still ordinary people, I mean, he or she is not a specialist in WASH sector, do not know the situation we discussed today, and also do not make priorities. What's more, if climate change progresses, the situation in some areas will become worse in the future. For example, it will be more difficult to access to clean drinking water because of flood or drought caused by climate change. Therefore, as a first step, I strongly consider that it is important for more people to know the fact and to take measures as soon as possible. To achieve this, as one of our youth, I believe that youth can play an important role, that is, to share the information by using social media that youth can utilize more effectively than any other generation. Another significant point is that when people consider WASH issues, they just consider, for example, water is contaminated. the number of basic sanitation, like toilet or latrine, are not enough. However, the important things are what happens due to these problems. A good example is women issues we discussed today. In some areas, because of the lack of basic sanitation facilities, people must do open defecation, and it causes not only water contamination but also the risks of violence for women and waterborne diseases for children. Therefore, in my opinion, to tackle wash issues, it is important to collaborate with various experts such as water and sanitation engineer and gender specialist, a public health specialist, as well as an environmental specialist. And then it is important more people to know the situation, as I said before. Thirdly, in general, water sanitation problems in low and middle income economies is more serious than high income economies. However, even if people live in high income economies and they can access to clean water and basic sanitation now, I think it is important to consider what we can do for other countries. For example, as I have mentioned already, climate change will cause more floods than now in the future. However, fortunately, my country, Japan, has various technologies to tackle flood. Like this case, I believe that if more people in the world know the situation of wash, we can share the technologies or useful information each other by using internet or some kind of the tool. Finally, these days, youth are much interested in social issues such as SDGs, poverty, and so on, with passion and innovative ideas. Therefore, once youth know the fact of WASH and they are interested in, I believe that youth will contribute to tackle WASH challenges. I'm not sure today how many people, how many youth are here, but I hope more and more youth know how WASH issues or water and women and climate issues are important in the world. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. That was very clear. I think communication and involving more people is really a good issue. So thank you for that. And it would be great if people would look not only at their own country, but see the world situation of SDG 6. So now I would like to give the floor to Uli and see how she sees the future. Uli, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Merit, for the introduction, and thank you, Bu Ayla, for your explanation. As a young water professional, this project has several strengths. First is a community-driven, hence the solution that were put forward were relevant to the needs of the community. And also, this project invests in community empowerment by awareness program, capacity building, and training like literacy classes, living training. And then technically, it is responsive to changes or emergency, like adapting the infrastructure design after the earthquake by placing water tanks on below ground. And ultimately, this project involving the vice governor of Lombok, the village head, and the government is a great approach. But in my viewpoints that could be improved in the future, like first, emphasizing on youth involvement. The project could emphasize more on youth who can act as bridges between the community and religious leaders through a youth adolescent partnership. And then it is important to undertake a thorough stakeholder assessment to ensure everyone, also younger community members and disadvantaged groups in the community, have a vote and have a sufficient opportunities to bring in their ideas and demand. And second is about sustainability. Building and maintaining waste facilities is one aspect, but as ensuring that this is functional, meaning that the water source that is feeding the system will keep providing safe and sufficient water is equally important. And then we know because Lombok is a rapid expansion of tourism on the island, we need to ensure the important forest areas and water sources remain protected to ensure sufficient water supply for future generations. Ideas could be on reuse of domestic wastewater for irrigation of organic farm or biogas. And then second, ideas would be installing rainwater harvesting system to complement the ground and surface water supply. Because more promotion of and policy on rainwater use and good regulation toward larger groundwater user will be important to protect Lombok's water resource. And lastly, due to COVID-19 and more importantly, impacts of climate change, safe access to water and sanitation have never been more vital. Youth are important and can act as influencers to others. So we therefore need to seek their support in and educate them on, for example, like healthy lifestyle campaigns, but also involvement on how we can best reach out to them. Knowledge and participation of young people are relevant as they can support the long-term sustainability. For example, project infrastructure like maintenance and repairs. So that's all for me. Back to you, Merit.
Okay, thank you very much. That was loud and clear, I can tell you. So I think we have now had the presentation, the view of the expert discussant, Fanny, the youth who's looking at communication and sort of telling the world through social media the issues that are there, finding solutions like rainwater harvesting. Of course, nowadays, the floodings keep on going. Water creates, the climate change creates a lot of water disasters. And those are one of the questions as well. But I think I will go back to Ayla first and see if she has a reaction to the questions that Fanny had. I mean, one of the questions also comes back in the question and answers, and that was the one on identifying early marriages from the start of a project. But I'll give you the floor so you can react. Maybe that's easier, Ayla. If you unmute yourself, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Marit. And I've always got my little book here to make notes. So I've tried to make notes from all of the comments and the questions. And perhaps first, Fanny, if I address your question about what were the gender issues identified in this village, I should explain that we received funding fairly soon, or well, not fairly soon, about 6 months after the earthquake in Lombok. And also in Palu, we also went there and did some emergency work. Yeah. Now, initially, our focus was on providing water because, as you saw from that photo of the well, yeah, there was hardly any water, and the women would sit there until midnight. But when we actually found this village, we sat down with them and we knew they needed water. Yeah. But then by having meetings involving all the villagers and then separately also with the women, we were able then to note the serious gender issues, yeah, that we hope to address, because in Soroptimist, this is what we want to do. We want to improve the status of women. We want to focus on them because worldwide, males get a lot of opportunities and women are often left by the wayside. So that's how we actually approach this project. And as my slide showed at the end, we knew from the outset that once we provided water, this would free women up, yeah? So we didn't want them just to do nothing. There are lots of photos of these women just sitting around doing nothing in the early stages, yeah? We wanted to involve them. We wanted to upskill them. But realistically, when people are illiterate, there's only a certain amount of training you can conduct in the outset, yeah? So that's basic literacy training. To be honest with you, didn't realize the high rate of illiteracy amongst the whole village, not just the women. Yeah, so in some of those photos, you see the men participating in these programs as well. But looking to the future, and we hope there's a phase 3 of this project, because you mentioned being involved with this in phase 2. We're already ongoing phase 2. It's capacity building. But now phase 3, we were very saddened to hear at the fairly high rate of these child marriages. And not only that, some of the young children, 6, 7, 8, as soon as they come home from school, when they were going to school before COVID, they just quickly get changed and go to the beaches to sell these bracelets and cloths made by their parents. Yeah, and this we saw as a danger also to young children. You know, just being exposed to possible dangers. Yeah. But ongoing, certainly we will look closer at that. And maybe I can combine some of the questions about the child marriages. How do we propose to get involved in that?
Can you keep it short as well? Just
yeah. A very sensitive issue. It does require you know, dealing with the traditions of the area. And we think going ahead, and this is still at the planning stage, because this was not part of our project, looking into how to eliminate or reduce child marriages. Yeah. And so we hope to be working with some local religious organizations and authorities too, and maybe the Commission on the Protection of Children. There's still a few more questions there, but we'll incorporate those later.
Okay, thank you very much. Then there is, I would like to go back to Fanny, and I think it's what is really nice in this project, Fanny, is indeed that from the design, the women have been involved. So they were asked what they needed, and I think that is one of the major things that is not happening worldwide, is that you get a project, it's done, and at the end the women are involved. Can you in short say, do you see a possibility of expanding this project, but mainly of course women projects and women organizations always have problems getting finances. It's still worldwide, nothing to do with Indonesia, but worldwide, one has the feeling that women can't handle finances. You know, $1,000 would be okay, but I mean, if you get over that, I mean, my God, they probably spend it on ridiculous things. So how can we find finances and expand this over other places in Indonesia, or even further in other countries? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marit. So this is a very important question, and actually this is a question for any projects. But I think there is a big challenge also for this, you know, woman focused woman empowerment project. It's true that it is not very easy to find the funding, but recently I was also discussing with some of our colleagues that if we are waiting for the donors to, you know, to find the opportunity, the window of opportunity to have this funding that, you know, align with our mission, vision of the project, this is a bit something that we will a bit difficult to wait for, and the uncertainty is also quite high. So I was thinking with some of our colleagues that, okay, why don't we develop this like a trust fund? Because we have this crowdsourcing fund mechanism right now. So many people are more and more aware about this, the best, the good of having this gender responsive and inclusive project, and that it has more benefits compared to the other project that's not considered the gender responsive and inclusion, social inclusion. So why don't we, this is in my opinion, set up a small trust fund, a crowdsourcing trust fund, where everybody can look what we are planning, what we are trying to do, and ask them to, if they are willing to contribute, they can donate, and then we can inform them that at the end of the project, or in every periodically, then we will do this audit and we will share with them. So I think this crowdsourcing mechanism is one of the opportunity that we have to explore. And we are going to do that, and we are going to set up what we call IWM Trust Fund, where everybody can join, and then everybody can choose what kind of project that they want to finance. So we don't rely on the big organization, but we can rely on the people themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's maybe a good idea. And Ayla, maybe we can join in the trust fund and see how we can establish that. There are a lot of questions specifically for Ayla, and I mean, coming back to the young water professionals, sorry, rainwater harvesting was mentioned. I know in other projects and also in the webinar on Malaysia, rainwater harvesting was a big sort of incentive for the project. Was there a possibility, and is it worth doing thinking of rainwater harvesting in this area? I think it's both for Ayla and Fanny. So,
if I could just answer on the way forward document, we've actually listed that, water conservation, recycling, rainwater harvesting, and wastewater treatment, and so on. But we haven't actually got into that yet, and I'd like Fanny's comments about how maybe we can get started with that. I think the project in Malaysia has been successful in doing that. Mind you, in Lombok, not a lot of rain, but when it does rain, of course, then it floods. So so Fanny, what are your ideas there?
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Ayla. So rainwater harvesting actually is not new, but this is actually useful if we do it properly. So, but we know there were some projects in the eastern part of Indonesia that focusing on the use of the rainwater harvesting, but then because it was not properly done, then it became a problem because then it's not closed properly. They don't know how to maintain the rainwater tank because this is provided for each household. So if you want to do the rainwater harvesting, you need to improve the design, you need to improve the mechanism, and then probably to have a communal rainwater harvesting. So 5 households, 1 rainwater harvesting, so they can take a turn to clean, to maintain, and then how to use this. Because the first drop of the rain, you need to allocate like 1.5 minutes, or not 2 minutes, to let all the dirt comes out first, and then you close the valve, and then goes into the rainwater, and then you can use it. But yes, there are actually many innovation right now with the rainwater harvesting that we can learn from. I just evaluate 86 proposals around the world, and many of them are rainwater harvesting. So I was thinking like, actually there are a lot of innovation on that. So we need to look, and then we learn from each other.
Okay, thank you for that. And we also had, as I already said earlier, in Malaysia, a rainwater harvesting, but that was quite easy because they had those long houses, so there was a lot of space to actually collect water. Another question I would like to ask the young water professionals. You were both talking about networks, about social media, about improving the awareness in the world. Could you already start this in your own networks? I mean, are there youth networks that may be interested in climate and water awareness that that will sort of so that they can be ambassadors of water and climate issues? So the floor is for both Shotaro and Uli. Shotaro, I think you have to unmute.
Okay, I'll talk fast. Thank you very much for the question. I want to divide 2 cases in Japan and also in the case of global. First of all, in the case of in my country, Japan, actually we have the network thanks to IWA, as you probably know, International Water Association. But problem is that, as I said, Japanese young water professional don't know the situation in other countries. In my country, fortunately, we don't have a lot of climate issue. Therefore, young YWP in my country don't know the relationship between the water and climate change. Yeah, and in the case of the in the global level, I mean the International Water Association in the global level, I think that people, especially in low and middle income countries, know the relationship well. And actually, thanks to like the people from India or people from Africa, I know the situation. And actually, and we can make the relationship gradually and gradually thanks to the international event and so on. And these days, we can use actually social media, but in my opinion, it is still not enough. Yeah. And in the future, I wanna use more and more social media, and then we can communicate each other and we can share the information each other.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Uli.
What's your about? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you? Yeah, Uli.
No.
Sorry. Do you still have a point to make? Sorry.
No. I mean, please go ahead, Yuri.
Okay, so I will talk in Indonesia, especially Indonesia have plenty of environment and sustainability movement in in a youth movement, but in water particularly, there is still a small amount of people who concerned with this. Only people that works or have a concern with water are really engaging with the issues. So I think in for young generation, it would be more raising up their voice, raising up their awareness through social media. So I think we still need more work to do in Indonesia for youth, especially for water concern and climate change, because in general, in youth people, especially, they only link it climate change with emission, with deforestation. So we're still far behind. So we need to raise our voice again with the water issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Uli. And the thing is, I mean, if you're in the water sector and if you do a lot with big organizations, I mean, people all are worried that the SDG 6 is lagging behind. I mean, we will not manage to achieve SDG 6 in 2030. But I think it would be a good thing to get more awareness on the youth and also to make them aware that it's up to them. If you look at the disasters, the climate change disasters that are happening, they are all linked to water. I mean, it could be drought, it could be earthquakes, it could be flooding. It's all water. So I think that is a really very important task of the youth. And looking at the COVID now, if we don't have clean water, I mean, how can you wash your hands? Now, that's one of the major things. So, okay, I will go back to the questions that are on the question and answers. And Sarada asks, Ayla, did you bring teachers from outside the village to address the literacy problems, or did you do that with your own Soroptimist group, and were they involved?
Actually, neither. What we did was we did consult with quite a few consultants and training providers from outside the village, and we realized very early on that it was going to be too high a level for these people and probably wouldn't be successful. So we searched around for locals, and interestingly enough, the kadus, the kepala dusun, the village head, is a teacher himself, and he's given a lot of time and energy to teaching some of these literacy classes. But we've got a few groups, and we do have a young teacher, and you saw in the video, a young woman teacher. She comes in, and we're starting from pretty basics here. What's the date of, what's the day, the date of the week, and so on and so on. Yeah, that's what we did. We, members of Soroptimist International Jakarta, we're a small club. We only have 40 members. One of our members was involved in teaching the basic financial management. This member is actually an auditor with a big company here. And Ibu Lily has been training them in financial management and thinking ahead to how to set up businesses and microfinancing. So the way that works with the village is we actually lend the money for them to buy the yarn and to fix up the equipment. And then once they sell their cloths, they have to pay us back, for the cost of the yarn and so on, because that then gives them an idea of how business works and how they have to be responsible too. And when we pay them the money for helping to sell their clothes, we advise them on what percentage of that is actually their costs and what they can save and what they can perhaps use for their families.
Okay, thank you. And talking about microfinances, is that an easy way? I think we can combine two of the questions. That is maybe also for Fanny and Ayla together. It's the microfinances, which is not always easy, especially in these remote areas. But also the local governments. What we quite often realize is that local governments and governments in general sort of come into the project when they actually see the results, instead of starting off the project together with the NGO or whatever organization it is. Can you give us your reaction on that, or solution to maybe change it? I don't know, Ayla, if you want to start.
Yeah, well, we're at the very, very early stages with this, and once again dealing with people who, barely know how to read and write. But for starters, what we are teaching them is the value of money and how you can't just keep on accepting that Soroptimist is going to be there forever and giving you the money for the yarn and so on. The sustainability, they need to know that, okay, we will lend them the money and then they have to pay us back and so on. To be honest, we haven't yet sought microfinancing from banks and so on, because we did try that with another project and there were some complexities there. But we have helped to write proposals for these women to get some seed funding to start very small businesses like shops, along the wayside to sell their kain, their cloths, their woven cloths. So this in phase 3 maybe we'll focus on that in greater depth. Once the capacity building programs have really been successful and so on. So Fanny, I don't know what you want.
Yes, two things then on the government's involvement. I agree, because first, we have, from the government perspective, you have a lot of projects going on the ground. Sometimes you don't have enough time, but with this project, I believe this is already discussed with the government, and I saw the picture of the vice governor. Yes, so this is a good strategic action by the project. But it is true. I mean, most of the governments, from the government perspective, seeing is believing. So once something is successful, then they will try to look, what is this, and then they try to be involved. But it is what it is. I mean, hopefully in the future we can try to change a bit on how they can be more involved. learning from all the successful cases, and also from the lessons learned from other projects also. So yeah, that is on the government's question. And then on the microfinance also, this is, I think, I have some experiences on this. So microfinance, actually, we have BRI. It's a government-owned bank, but they are serving the community also. They are at the village level also. But of course, we have to discuss with them on how this microfinance mechanism can be delivered to the community, and then try to convince them that the non-performing loans will be very low, because people will see it also as a backup, fallback position, backup income also. So if they are comply with the with the installment every month and everything, they will have this emergency, sort of like a contingency source of fund. But also from another project, there is a lesson learned. So we had this project in East Java, and we were focusing on helping with the women to have this finance support. And some of the women in that village, they have this access, and then they start to have these small shops. But what we didn't realize that time is that the women who usually woke up around 4 o'clock in the morning, now they have to wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, because they have to prepare for their shops, but also at the same time, they still have to prepare for the family. So there is no working division, labor division within the household. And in some cases, if we don't be careful about this, women having cash on hands and having more, pride. This is also something from the perspective of the husband, from the man. This is also something that is not always good. So it also triggered some, domestic violence. So we need to consider all kind of possibilities. So when we design this microfinance program in the future, we already understand that kind of thing can happen. So we already ready with the anticipation on that. So that would be my input on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know it's wonderful to have microfinance, but it also creates issues. And of course, I mean, one of the issues is domestic violence, which is all over the world. So I think I would like to finish really with a very, very short question to the youth, and that is, how do you think that youth-centric models can be involved in the mainstream policy and decision-making of water supply and quality monitoring? Can you answer that in one sentence? Maybe Shotaro.
It is very difficult question actually, but I think it is very important. And my answer is simply, it is important to use social media and say this issue is very important again and again.
Okay, thank you very much. Uli, do you have one sentence on this, or?
Yeah, I think youth is important to have one voice on this.
Okay, I totally agree. And I think we have to join hands, we have to cooperate together, all stakeholders, from government to youth to the grassroots, because I mean the success of this project is really because the grassroots were involved, and I think that that made it successful. The time is up, so I have to stop. I'm really sorry, I could continue and the questions could continue. We'll have a look and see if there are questions that haven't been answered, and then we'll go back, we'll come back to you on these questions. Please look at our YouTube channel. If you look at YouTube and click on Women, Water, Climate, you will find this webinar again. It will be put on later this week, I mean, maybe tomorrow or maybe Thursday. You can ask questions on womenwaterclimate.eventbrite.com. And I thank you all for listening. And it was, I have to thank the panelists because, again, this was a wonderful, wonderful initiative. It was a wonderful presentation, and it was, the answers were really a little bit provocative. And I think we know that we have to take on this issue and continue. So thank you very much to everyone, and hope to see you on our next webinar, which will be on Thursday. And Thursday, we are looking at the urbanization, which will happen in Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, afternoon, evening, and hope that I'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Vaila.
Thank you very much.
Everybody. Thanks.